I'm a self-taught quilt maker. I didn't go to quilt school or any of that. This is my figuring out how to make these things. I've been making quilts for 42 years. I know that because my daughter is 42. And when I started making quilts, it was because it was a cheap thing that I could learn how to do on my own with a 25-cent book from the flea market. Because I was poor. I was a single mom. I had no money to, for recreational stuff, but I could buy a lot of cheap fabric, which was often ugly, and I could transform it. After making maybe 10 or more quilts for Deandra and Alli for the babies they were delivering, Deandra asked me if I would come to talk about community quilt making. I think it was really important that the first part of this, which was going and talking to the women about community quilt making and just quilt making in general, establishing that foundation of connection between what we were about to embark on, which many of them knew little or nothing about quilt making. That was very helpful. And I brought in a couple of quilts and I had some books. And so I built a relationship with the group. So when I was called back to have them actually cut out individual squares and create whatever they wanted to create on the squares, they already knew who I was, and I had met them, or most of them, and I think there was a degree of trust that I was going to help them create something that was going to be a complete piece and make a statement of their individuality, but also their collective goal and what y'all do at SisterWeb's. So. And then I brought some fabrics. There were some that were there, and then I brought some of my own to contribute. So I'm in here too. I mean, I'm in here because I put it together, but I'm also in here in this fabric and this fabric and that fabric. So, so that was important. It's a beautiful way to bring people together. To make a statement. I mean, think about it. The AIDS quilt, I worked on the AIDS quilt. Yeah. I couldn't do a lot of that because it was very sad. But it is a way to build community.
Mm-hmm. In what ways does it build community?
Well, it builds the community of whoever's working on a community quilt.
Right.
Like its involvement of the organization or the neighborhood or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's multiple communities. There's community of, the doulas. There's the community of people who are having babies, pregnant people. And then there's the community beyond that where the people will live and the babies will grow up. And I think we should find more ways to become cohesive instead of fragmented and fractured as communities. And then it builds community in another way. Like once you have a product, once you've completed something, you display it, and it brings people in from the community. Like, oh, what's that? Who's SisterWeb? Why? Questions, interest. Mm-hmm. And I personally see this as activism. To me, maybe at the top of the list of what it means is bringing attention to a perspective, to something that isn't being handled well, something that needs funding, that is for the betterment of the community at large or the even larger community. I guess it can also mean in celebration of something, but to me, activism kind of means change. My understanding is that SisterWeb does serve some underserved communities, and I think that that's wonderful. not that there are underserved communities, but that there are organizations that can be supportive of the people in those communities. I think that because there sometimes are very adversarial relationships between the medical community and the people that have to avail themselves of those services, I think this is something that's more personal and something that any community could benefit from.